If you think about the opportunities that are coming to Kansas City, the opportunities that have grown within our workforce, there are clear points where we as Black professionals can truly leverage who we are, leverage the light that has been born with us, and just kind of see that in a space that we've probably never seen it before. And I think that it really takes community, it takes collaboration for us to be able to see those things, or it just takes us seeing each other, or somebody recognizing the light that you have in yourself. So this Ascend Cohort is not just about your professional development, but it's about building a community of leaders who's going to impact the growth and the opportunities here in Kansas City, right? So the goal with the Ascend Cohort is that we will onboard 40 Black professionals, whether that you are a professional within your company or you are a founder of a nonprofit or a for-profit. Main point of that is that you will go through, we call them 10 Saturdays, but it encompasses a full 22 weeks. But it's 10 Saturdays of a full day here in this space where you will learn not only about yourself, you'll come out with a strategy on how to grow that household income by 30% within 3 years, and you'll also have the resources or the opportunities to be connected to those resources to help you do that. We'll have coaches, we'll go through some racial healing, which you guys will learn more about, and then also we'll have the support of a financial advisor who will walk along that 3-year plan with you on how to financially prepare to really grow that income, sustain it, and grow it at the same time. And then also you'll have some access to some online content to where you'll know how to bring together all the things that you need to be able to build your will or to be able to build a trust. And then we'll also have content around new investments. So learn about Bitcoin, learn about blockchain and all the things that I don't know nothing about. So we'll be learning together. But again, all those things are fine and dandy. But the biggest part of it is creating leaders that have their feet on the ground, that have that foundation to be able to hold the weight of being a leader in a corporation, and you're the only Black face in that space. You know, being able to say that I have a community that I can lean on, that I can go back to when I'm going through the things that I'm going through in this new leadership position. But then also to say that the work that I'm doing is going to inspire the next generation to be able to actually go through the path that I'm going through to help us close the racial wealth gap. We just had like a quick little impromptu meeting in the back, and the status was said that as it is right now, it would take us 200 years to close that racial wealth gap, right? And so we need to accelerate that. We need to be able to put ourselves in a position to be able to lean into each other, lean into our God-given talents, and lean into the community so that we can be able to grow together. I'm gonna be done. I'm sorry, soapbox. I apologize. Just want to give a little bit of context to what the Ascend Cohort is. We have a landing page out there. If you haven't got it, I'll make sure that I'll email everybody who signed up for the Eventbrite, or if you download Proximity, you will know all about it. There are some costs associated to it as well. But we are positioning ourselves as a professional development organization. So we're looking for scholarships, and we're also looking to partner with your company to be able to be in alignment with them so that they can be able to see it as a professional development opportunity as well. And then what I'm really trying to say is that I want them to pay for it, right? But I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna need y'all to pay for it too, because we don't really value anything that our money ain't tied to, right? And so there is a little bit of that investment that's needed as well. But I feel like it's all for the good. It's not to exclude anybody, but it's all for the good of what we're actually trying to create so that we can continue to grow those pathways. So without further ado, I don't really like introducing everybody. I'm gonna let everybody introduce themselves. And then actually I'm gonna get over to the moderator so you can do your job. All right, thank you, man. Appreciate y'all for coming out.
I was hopeful that Craig would set the space for us to know what we're all coming together for. Good evening, everybody. My name is Ariana King. Some people may know me as AK. I am 1/3 of the Radical Alignment podcast. We're going to be taking over these Rebuild Honestly panels in 2024. So this is kind of a good segue into what you can expect from us, the kind of organic conversations that we hope to bring to professionals like yourselves. Again, my name is Ariana King. I am a community engagement consultant. That sounds good together. I'm an upcoming communications coordinator for a nonprofit here on the Missouri side, Front Porch Alliance. I'm a photographer. I love to capture Black families in their natural environments, and I'm also a doula. So I think we all wear multiple hats in this room. And so I'm gonna let this lovely group of panelists introduce themselves.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. AP. Dr. Aisha Augusta is my full name. I specialize in counseling psychology, specifically helping Black individuals heal from racial trauma. I'm also the co-founder of CEPO, which is a technology-based solution to help organizations get a quick, in real time snapshot of their diversity, equity, and inclusion health. We provide an inclusive score. We're the only business in the nation, as far as I know, that provides an inclusive score. And our goal is to build CEPO to the place of almost like a hallmark kind of notion for diversity, equity, inclusion, so that Black professionals, whenever they go into a city, they're able to look at the inclusive score of any organization and determine the fit based on racial health. I also am the director of programs at Black Excellence, so I'm really excited to talk about the Ascend program. We are adding a racial healing component, and this is really important. I'm going on a tangent, Lord. This is really important as far as Black professionals. In order for us as a community to reach our goals, we have to focus on healing. So I'll pass the mic and just do a brief introduction, but I'm excited to be here.
Okay, I got it. You know, it takes old people a minute to figure stuff out. You know what? I got this old so I can say what I want to say. My name is Kim Randolph. I am the president and CEO of Heartland Black Chamber of Commerce. I'm the associate pastor at Centennial United Methodist Church. I am the I am the founder of NQ LLC. I am the JV partner of Kwame Building Group, and I am a mother, a grandmother, and a great-grandmother. I am an activist and a proponent for next generation leadership. We'll talk more about that as we go along.
What's up, everybody? My name is Don Carter, former police officer. I don't know why I felt compelled to say that, except to give you some context for my whole story. Here in Kansas City, now I have founded the Black Business Breakthrough, which is designed to help Black professionals become powerful entrepreneurs. And I'm sure we'll get into some of that as we talk about the Ascend program. So.
All right. So with that, we're just going to dive right into some of these questions that we have, starting with the 2 pathways for the cohort. And this question is open to any of the panelists that want to take it. Can you kind of speak to the professional growth track and also the founder growth track, and describe the ideal participants for each of those and what they can expect to, how they can expect to scale their businesses?
I'll just start really briefly. 2 tracks for 2 reasons. We have a side of us that is used to working for other people and have a professional track that we've taken on that same story, that this is the means by which we can excel in the world. And so we have a track for people who are on that path of being a professional within an organization of some kind, and they want to elevate themselves. The other track is the founder track, where we have also understood that a path to that same elevation is starting and founding your own company in one way or another. And so those 2 paths are slightly different, although they converge in several ways. And so we've designed some engagement that allows the people who are in each of those camps to have a step-by-step process for experiencing some of the things that everybody else is going to talk about, but as well as just feel like they're on the track that's relevant for them. Some of the major components of it have to do with leadership development and self-development, and then, as Dr. AP stated, some healing. And so we put all these things together in order to have a, for lack of a better word, a holistic approach to career and business advancement. A lot of times in the circles of development, we focus a lot on the things that you need to do. But the reality is that who you are and who you understand yourself to be in relation to the world has so much more of an impact on how you navigate that track. So.
I'll just piggyback off of what Don said. For the professional track, we're looking for Black professionals who've been in their career for at least 2 years. For the entrepreneur track, anyone can apply for that if you have a business that is operating. So it doesn't have to have a time limit on it. And as Craig mentioned earlier, it can be for a nonprofit or for a for-profit business, but as long as it's operating.
Awesome, awesome. And then digging deeper into the actual curriculum that you all have spent a lot of time curating and working through, what are some of the things that entrepreneurs and startup companies will actually be learning in each of the tracks, and how they'll be able to apply it to their respective fields?
I'm not going to answer this as well as probably one. I have a list of all the things in a 10-week program that we have that I can read for you. But what I would say is, actually what I would ask, and I'll give a second for you to pause and think about it, is what do you believe the most important thing for a Black professional or a Black entrepreneur? What do you think the most important thing is for them to learn, for you to learn?
Community.
Community. Okay, that's one.
How to be confident, even though people don't talk about you, because you're different than them. Your voice is naturally deeper, the tone is deeper. You kind of come in with a different swag than everybody else got, and they all stare at you. They love your hair, they want to mess with it. Like, you know what I mean? Putting that stuff to the side.
Yeah. So community, confidence, these are some good C's. Anybody else got another C?
Creating win-win scenarios where my win doesn't have to be your loss and vice versa.
Right. Creating win-win scenarios. These are all great things. And these are components.
I was going to say wealth and assets. You need to know about that.
Wealth and assets.
Yeah, you need to know about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's what my opinion is about it. Most important thing for a Black professional or entrepreneur is to hold all of their sense of limitation and put it on trial. To question the very things that you name as the reasons you can't do something. And so all of your sense of limitation being put on trial. And that's what some of this is designed to do. When we talk about the racial healing, when we talk about what it actually means to be a leader, when we talk about how that shows up in community, and these are things that will be experiential during the process. And none of this stuff is rocket science, but I think the magic of what we intend to happen will occur when you're in the room and bringing your whole self to bear on this experience. And so I could read the list to you, but those are just the things, and those are easy to get caught up in. But I think what's most important is to put your own assumptions about what you can't do on trial so that you can really test it and see, and not just assume.
Great response. I think also, just to touch point on some of the comments, when we understand, when we heal from the trauma that we experience on a day-to-day basis, a lot of that comes with an understanding of self-knowledge, of who are we. So the comment on community, who are we outside of the oppression that we have experienced? You made a really great comment on a win-win concept or win-win idea that we need to embrace. I think when we think about the zero-sum game notion, that's more of a colonial perspective, right? When we think of the early bird catches the worm kind of concept, that if I gain something, then you lose something. So I have to rush to my goals, otherwise someone's going to steal it from me. That's a colonial concept. That's not necessarily a concept that we indigenously believed or taught our children or built our systems around. So when we talk about healing, we're talking about kind of a reconstruction of who are we before we've experienced, the trials that we have, and who do we see ourselves becoming in the future. And I think that that's a really important concept that we as a Black community need to tap into with some seriousness, with some diligence, as we have in all these other areas, but diligently seeking out the healing component, because we can rebuild a lot of those areas that appear to be fractured in our community.
Who said young young people don't know what they're doing? Go ahead, no, go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, who said young people don't know what they're doing? I mean, honestly, I'm not a part of writing this curriculum, but you hit the nail right on the head. And it's gonna start with healing. We have got to heal to the point where we are not waiting on someone else to tell us what we can and cannot do. We gotta test our limits, but we gotta heal from what we've been through. I'm in awe. I can sit out there.
Glad we're making you proud, Kim. This next question actually is for you. So, in your experience working with entrepreneurs and just working with the public and private sector, I met Kim maybe a year ago now when we both were working with the mayor's office over on the Kansas side, Wyandotte County. And so in your experience and when you think of this cohort and what you all are going to deliver, how is this going to be different than other local cohorts, national cohorts that, you know, are all recognizing how, you know, Kansas City is coming up and these opportunities? How is this going to be different from other ones that you've seen try to build up entrepreneurs?
I'm going to start with first, they took their time. They didn't look at a situation and not analyze it. So the intentionality of what is needed. It is so many of these organizations look at an opportunity to make some money, to get a grant, but are you really addressing the problem? Second, it is it's focused on our culture. A big problem that we have with a lot of organizations out here, even ours, we always want to be inclusive in exclusive clubs. So we are including everyone because we think that's how we will get a grant or how we'll get help. Is we open our doors and say we are doing this for the Black and brown community or the minority community. But if you, and I studied this when I took the chamber, when I looked at the other minority chambers out there, the Hispanic chamber, if you look at their vision and their mission, it is for the Latino community. When you look at the gay and lesbian, it is for the gay and lesbian community. When you look at the Asians, it is for the Asian Islands Pacific. None of them say minority. But if we say for the Black community, then there's an issue. So I think that the ideal that these guys sit down and said, you know, we are definitely going to look at our culture. We're going to look at our needs, and we know what we need to do. And I think that's what makes it different, not just for local, but for national organizations. And for startups, this program will let them know how to be businesses. We have a whole lot of hobbies out here, but we have very, very few businesses. So you have to understand what a business is. A business is to do two things: create jobs and generate revenue. And if we are working and we're being the supplier, the administrator, the salesperson, we have created a job for ourselves, but we have not created a business. And so I think that this cohort will help those in business grow and learn how to run a business, and those who are entrepreneurs who want to move up the corporate ladder understand corporate, because you got to understand the game that you're playing.
For sure. Does anybody want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll add to that just on the strength of what was said here. The time that was taken and invested into each of the different parts of what this was going to be for somebody is a testament to the leadership. And a person like Craig, who carries this not only in his heart, but just in his whole life. And to have somebody like that who's at that vested in this kind of work for people that he cares about, whether he knows them or not, I'm telling you, the richness of that is going to show in the people. Moving this forward, I think makes it exceptional compared to other potential things that are out there.
Definitely. Love that. Dr. AP, to piggyback off that previous question, this one is for you. Can you speak to how Ascend is going to nurture our professionals from a holistic standpoint, and like we talked about, healing these cultural and racial traumas? How is this cohort going to move us in that direction also?
Sure. When we think about just trauma in general, it has a massive impact on a person's well-being, overall well-being. So you think about, name any type of trauma that you can think of in your mind outside of racial trauma. It stifles a person's ability to make critical decisions. It stifles their ability to connect with others, so relationships-wise. It stifles their ability to plan in the future. So, project their visions into the future. So when we think about Black professionals and we think about the all-encompassing racial trauma that we experience on a day-to-day basis is quite crucial for Black professionals to heal in order for them to improve their performance professionally, in order for them to make critical decisions to move up in their career, in order for them to navigate the landscape of entrepreneurship and be able to make those decisions and partner with the people that they need to. When we think about racial trauma, that's one type of trauma that's incredibly prevalent to the Black community, but it's not talked about. During my PhD program, I learned about every trauma in the book except for racial trauma. Right. And Black people experience on average 5 instances of discrimination every single day. Research tells us that any type of discrimination is traumatic. So this is something that we deal with continuously, and that's just on an individual basis. There are 3 types of racial trauma that we experience. The first is individually, that you experience 5 instances a day. The second is epigenetic or transgenerational trauma. So this is the trauma that is passed down from one generation to the next. Tons of research out there on Holocaust survivors, how we can see that. We've studied that. They've done all kinds of tests on mice and other animals where they can see that if they traumatize one generation, it's there for 4, 5, 6, 7 generations down the line. The Holocaust happened many years ago. We talk about racial trauma. This happens every single day, to this day. The third type of trauma is collective or corporate trauma. So this is when you're scrolling on social media and you're watching a disturbing video of someone being traumatized, you're experiencing collective trauma. So if anyone in this room watched the George Floyd video, you experience racial trauma in that moment. And everybody's timeline is filled with videos just like that every single day, right? 10, 20, 30 different videos of those, of people who look just like you experiencing racial trauma. So those are 3 types of trauma that we experience continuously in our lives. So when we talk about Black professionals, it can hinder our ability to perform, it can hinder our ability to make critical decisions, it can hinder our ability to make meaningful connections in our romantic relationships, in our relationships with our family, in our professional relationships. So it impacts us on a holistic level because it is involved in every system that we interact with. If you live in America, if you live in any country that has a history of chattel slavery, that is pretty likely the experience that you're experiencing if you are Black. So it's incredibly important.
That's powerful. So what I'm hearing from all of you is that this cohort was developed with intention to be unapologetic and specific to our community. So I love that. Craig touched on this in the intro about the time and the financial investment that this cohort will require. And even though there are scholarships available, there's this importance around doing things out of pocket or however that looks for us individually to really place that value on it. And can you kind of speak to the kind of mindset shift that has to happen? Kim, you mentioned we have a lot of hobbies and not a lot of businesses, and so even shifting that mindset, how does someone prepare themselves to make that switch, to make that financial investment, to benefit from these opportunities?
You know,
Don laughed already.
She knows that's my favorite subject. Welfare.
Oh.
Welfare. We work on a welfare mindset. We don't invest in ourselves. When they do anything in this city, the corporations and the large businesses and even the white and other communities, they go in rooms, they sit down, and they discuss how much money they need to invest in order to build. And then they take that money and they offer it to the federal government, who matches their dollar. The federal government says, we will match your money, but you got to give a percentage of that to the disadvantaged neighborhoods. That's what we get when we wait and we don't invest. We do not invest in ourselves, and we don't invest in our communities. If you're not investing in your business, what are you doing? If you don't believe in you, what do you expect somebody else to do? They'll give you a little bit, but not enough. So in order for you, and this is a mindset that you have to shift, you have to know if you want to win, you got to invest in yourself. And that's where when he talks about the tuition and the money that has to be paid, we have to put something in. You got to have skin in this game. If you're in the business, if you want to climb up the corporate ladder, and that's not something that is individually to a black person. Any business, every business, white, black, Hispanic, Asian, they invest in themselves. And we do not do that. So I'll say that the mind shift has to come. We have to change our narrative and say, what do I need to do, and how do I raise the money that I need to invest in myself? Instead of saying, you owe me, or they owe me because I'm black.
Let me say something real quick to remind us all in this room who our ancestors are as far as investing in ourselves. So after the enslaved Africans were freed, within 5 years, they came together and put all their money together. You all may have heard this and probably did not learn this in school, but it was, they put all their money together and had an accumulated amount, I can't remember the amount, but in these freedom banks. Yeah, the Freedmen's Banks, that's right. So these newly freed Africans, because they didn't have citizenship yet, put all their money together, and the first institution that they built with no help from anyone was schools. The premise of American children having to go to school came from us. That was the first institution we created, was schools. And we scraped our money together from ourselves. We did not have the opportunity to go into anybody's banks. They didn't even have banks really back then anyway. So we did that ourselves. We built our own homes, we built our own communities, we started drilling oil on our own land. These are your ancestors. The notion of the free breakfast that's in every public school now came from your ancestors. The Black Panthers started the free breakfast as a way to help their own community. Every other community adopted that practice, just like every other community adopted the practice of sending their children to school. These are your ancestors. So we have a history, it's in our blood, of coming together with our resources to help ourselves. Now we have been divided, we have believed the stories that other people have told us about ourselves, but we need to remind ourselves of who we are and the power that we have.
For me, this is about two simple things: energy and value. You invest in the things that you value. How you invest in yourself determines how much you value yourself. Energy is just something that you have. You build it, you get it from the sun. And so what we spend our energy on comes from where our attention goes. And these two things put together equate to where we end up spending our money, which is what represents the energy that we use to create something in the world. And so if you can understand that about yourself, that you're already investing in something, you're already putting money, the representation of your life, it's the representation of your life into the things that you value. into the things that you value, now just ask yourself, has that produced for you the return on investment that you'd like? And if you're at any point in your life right now where you feel like you aren't, quote unquote, where you'd like to be, then the answer to that is no. That you have not gotten the return on your investment that you like. And so, where can you focus your attention, which is where your energy will be diverted, which will show you what you can actually value. And Dr. AP's call to understand who you are in a different way to value yourself, that will play into that. But even more importantly, since you're already doing this, think of it. Like, people invest money in things all the time. And a lot of us have believed this same narrative that, granted, we just learned that comes from some of our own history, but that paying for college is actually valuable. And so you'll go into debt in order to have the opportunity to do a certain thing where you'll come out maybe earning $40, $50, $70,000 a year. But what we're talking about is increasing your overall earning potential 30% over a period of time. Calculate that and then determine if what you want to invest into yourself for something like this actually makes sense for you. Because if you don't value it, it's okay. But understand that you're already doing this. We are already doing this. This is just a human thing where we put our energy and our efforts into the things that we actually see are valuable, where we'll get a return for our energy invested. And again, if you don't feel like where you are right now is where you'd hope to be, then you know that you're not getting the return on investment that was worthwhile.
Love that. Thank you all for all of those answers. So we're not done yet, but we are getting close to that time where we'll be able to open the floor up for questions from everybody in the room. So this ripple effect of positive change that the Ascend Cohort speaks to, which I love, I was reading about, there's kind of a few different types of people professionally, people that, a lot of us that are in this room that are hungry, that are ambitious, that want to take advantage of these opportunities. And then there are people that may be in their respective professions that don't know that these spaces exist. They don't know about BXKC. They don't know the opportunities that are out there for them. And so that's going to be birthed from this cohort, right? And so how can people take advantage of what's coming to Kansas City through this cohort?
What's coming to Kansas City through this cohort? You mean?
Well, let me rephrase that. The bit we know about the World Cup is coming. We know we just had the NFL draft. And so all of these big opportunities that have put Kansas City on the map for a lot of these industries.
Yeah. I think some of the things that are important to realize is that the tendency to think short term is really kind of epidemic, where even just thinking about trying to show up for the World Cup in a couple of years is already not enough time. To be able to prepare yourself for the longer journey of who do I want to be in 10 years? Who do I want to be in 50 years? We talk about generational wealth all the time. We talk about legacy all the time. But I don't know if people are actually thinking about further than their lifetime. They're looking at their kids, who they get to experience. And so if you can expand your vision of time, your view of time, to say, all right, what do I want to become in the next 10 or 15 years? That'll give you the fuel, or be able to have the use of the fuel that you have to sustain this. So it's not just about what's coming to Kansas City in 2 years. It's about what kind of community, what kind of person, what kind of whole ecosystem do you want to build as a powerful human being who happens to specialize in being Black. So think longer term to give yourself the best opportunity. I'm trying to remember exactly how it said that we overestimate what we can do in a year, but underestimate what we can do in 15. Something of that nature, where we look at time in a flip-flop way. It's like, I'm gonna be a billionaire next year. And then we do all this hustle, burn ourselves out, and then aren't able to actually perform fully. Instead of thinking, in 10 years, I could actually do this. And take it step by step, day by day, with a group of people who are like-minded and building a collective. We've seen the history of what the people that we descend from have been able to do in a very short amount of time with relatively small resources and few people. And every time it's powerful to where the whole world pays attention. The biggest example of that right now to me is hip hop, even if you think somebody else took it over. But this is something in a matter of your lifetime, most people, 30 years or more, even though it's 50 years old, we experienced it in a way that it's pervasive across the country and nation, world. So we've seen elements of this. We don't have to just look back. But if you do, every little time, people were doing things, a very small amount of people, with very few resources, that did incredibly major things that you hear about today, even though you don't know who they are. And so expanding that is probably the most important aspect of this that I could even think of. That, no, we're not prepping people for the World Cup necessarily. Right. We're prepping you for world domination. And that does take a little while to play out.
Play the long game, people.
I'm telling you, when you do, even just thinking that way changes the way you approach the moment. You get out of this hustle culture and actually start to build. It's not just about what you can do today and what you can hustle up to survive. You're surviving just fine. It's deeper than that.
Moving beyond survival. That's powerful. Dr. AP?
I agree. I think it's more than just what Kansas City has to offer as far as opportunities. I think it's really revolutionizing a community, a group of people. I think it's healing. It's being able to create our own opportunities. It's looking within ourselves. As far as a community, as far as a group of people, as far as an individual, how can I change my circumstances as opposed to looking outside of ourselves and outside of our community? And I think that's really important. And I think this cohort is, with all of the elements that the participants will be able to learn and get training in, the core will be something our ancestors said: self-determination. Self-determination. So.
I know y'all been waiting on me to challenge all of this, right? But I'm not going to do it tonight. I will say that what I hope, my hope is with this, and I see it, is that we do get out of the box. We have to get out of the box. We have to know where we are and what we're doing. We are in a capitalistic system. And until we understand the rules of the game, we're not going to be able to play. And we're not going to be able to win. And I think this cohort takes us out of our comfort zones. We get to the point where, as you were speaking on, I'm just kind of really emotional tonight, because this is really the first time since I took over the chamber that I actually see hope. I actually see an opportunity for the self-determination, the understanding of the work that can be done and should be done, and it cannot be that microwave mindset. Okay, the World Cup's coming, but the World Cup is leaving. Then what? And if you're not thinking beyond World Cup is just an opportunity that is coming to the city that more than likely some people are going to make something out of it, a lot of people are not. Let's just keep it real, because to your point, we don't have a whole lot of time left and nobody's actually getting up moving yet. And in a couple of weeks or months, you're going to be behind the 8 ball. But beyond that, economically, financially, Where are we going to be in our whole entire ecosystem? How are we going to change our dire situation in the school system? This thing is bigger than just your business and your growing in a corporate setting. This is the future of who we are. There's biosciences that's going on. Does anybody know anything about what's going on in bioscience? Does anybody know what's going on in space? Do you know why a submarine imploded under the water so deep? Why were they down there? Do you understand that everything that they do in this world affects you? We got to get out the mindset. You got to understand this too. If you're an American citizen, guess what? This country belongs to you. We have to stop making ourselves outsiders and become insiders. The steps that you walk on in Washington, D.C., in every building was built by someone that looks like you. In every country, all these major historic buildings were built by your ancestors. It is up to us to go beyond the ideal of a World Cup. Because now, when are we going to have a voice? When are we going to be able to say, hey, here we are, and we are viable, and we're part of this country? Actually, we built this country beyond the World Cup. That's all I can say, this is what this is doing. What Craig and this team has put together is get out the box. And I think that's what's made me so excited. Nobody has ever talked about healing. And that's going to be a hard thing. We got to face some things about ourselves and stop blaming others for choices that we've made in this country.
That's powerful. Let's give a round of applause for our panelists today. Before we wrap up, we're going to open the floor up for any questions or feedback from the audience. If anyone just wants to raise their hand and... Yes, Mr. Moore.
Sorry, I just wanted to make a quick little statement because as you all mentioned, we are working in a system that wasn't built for us, right? And as we navigate this system, there are still things that we have to do just to please whoever we have to please. And I'm specifically talking to our potential applicants who are coming from a corporate setting, right? Your company's gonna come back to you and say, how does this align with our KPIs? You know, like they're not gonna understand. Me as a black person, I don't need soft skills. I probably don't even need the hard skills. I just need to heal. I need to heal through, Dr. AP says a data point that all of us as black people, we experience some type of discrimination at least 5 times a day. And we don't ever take time to heal through those moments that allows us to unblock this mental barrier that we have for me to do whatever KPI or whatever work it is that I have to do. I'm subjected to the things online constantly every day that makes me not even want to come to work, let alone talk to you, let alone turn on my camera on Zoom. But there's still going to be benchmarks, there's still going to be these things. So we have that language. We are willing and open to work with you, with your HR department, to understand what your individual KPIs are so that you can reach those things, but then also understand that the holistic approach is going to be there as well. So we see a question over there, I'll hop over there and answer it from there. So I just want to make that statement.
Thank you for walking that mic across the room, Craig. We appreciate that.
Fantastic words. And I appreciate the sentiment that you all deliver the information with, and I think it could be deeply impactful. 2 questions. One, how do you manage the empathetic part of what's required to help people to understand their trauma and where they are when a lot of individuals who have been traumatized for so long have an attachment to it without being self-righteous about it. Because a lot of times that's what gets challenging with most of these programs, is there's an air of self-righteousness that comes where people don't feel comfortable navigating a process because it feels like you are already casting a certain image upon me before you even establish or understand what my story is. So that's question number one. Question number two has more to deal with how do you navigate those thoughts that come from well-intentioned statements that have been made over time that have led to a certain type of indoctrination. Because you can have negative indoctrination that comes from outside sources with ill intentions, but you can also have that same type of indoctrination that has positive intentions, but is not necessarily helping you to advance. Because I only technically want you to advance as far as I got. So I teach you survival skills, but not skills on how to thrive. So how are you not navigating those two spaces? The empathy to not appear self-righteous, and then how are you also navigating the seemingly positive indoctrination that also leads to those barriers to move forward?
Wow, great questions. Love that. You may have to repeat the second one for me, but the empathy one, I think is a really great question so that we don't appear self-righteous. Well, when we think about self-righteous, what is that? That's a response to a trigger. So the first step to address that is to heal ourselves. I always get the comment that Aisha, you handle such difficult conversations related to race with such grace and all of this, and I was like, and I have to explain to people, it's because I healed myself. I used to be self-righteous. I used to be triggered so much by having these difficult conversations, by the microaggressions that I experience all the time, having to be the one that carries the burden in a work environment where I'm the only Black female, I'm the only Black person. So I had to go on the journey of healing myself, and it took a couple years. But that work is so important. That's why I emphasize that. That will help us not be triggered and come across as self-righteous. That will help us lead with empathy and also lead with power. So empathy is not, a weak sentiment. It's not that. We have to understand like what true strength is. So I went on this journey of healing myself so that I can be the most purest vessel that I can to do the work that I'm supposed to do. And that comes with understanding who I am. I went on a journey of figuring out who I was outside of the colonial impact of my people at all. I had to go all the way back to ancient Kemet, and that was a personal journey. But I think that that's really important. And I hope I'm answering your question right. I want to double check. Is that what you meant when you said empathy?
Yeah, just managing it so you don't come across as self-righteous. When you're trying to build a program, that's the part that can hold a lot of programs, or does hold a lot of programs back. Right.
So yeah, that is definitely a reaction of a trigger, right? So that's a notion that someone is unhealed in that moment.
I think in addition to that is, again, it goes back to the leadership and the spirit with which this was founded, but it's really through invitation. It's not through judgment, but an inviting spirit of like, let's come and do this rather than you need to do this or else. And yeah, maybe stated factually that unless you do this, then you won't get this other thing. Unless you take the time and the energy to do what we're calling heal. And what is healing work anyway? It's really just having a sense of wholeness where you felt like there was something else, brokenness maybe. But maybe there isn't any real brokenness. Maybe just is how we think about the thing, or maybe how we've approached it. And so it's inviting us into a journey rather than saying, this is the way, because we can't tell you how to heal. We can introduce you to an environment in which you can heal. We can't direct anybody to do the work, but we can invite you into the possibility of engaging in it. And so that's really the spirit, again, of the leadership that is, I'm not trying to just blow you up, Craig, but it's not a joke at all that this leadership has put so so much heart and effort into making this what it has become. And that's for people who will come to it. The second part of your question, I'm curious about what you mean with the positive intended, how did you say it?
Indoctrination.
Indoctrination, yeah. What's an example of that?
It was mentioned about going to college, right?
Yeah,
The idea that going to college somehow defines your ability to ascend in one way or another.
yeah,
That is not necessarily true, but it's been repeated enough times throughout one's lifetime to sink into your mind as being that. So for a lot of people who maybe did not go to college or did not complete college, there is this kind of built-in hesitancy to even advance, even when they're brilliant, because the indoctrination part, which was well intended, because they want you to be successful and be able to navigate the world,
right.
but that can become a barrier to you advancing if you feel like you are inept in some way.
Right.
Because you don't have the book learned part, you don't have the actual certificate. That's just one example. Religion's another one, we don't have time for that.
Yeah, and again, I would just go to the first thing I said, which was interrogating your own sense of limitation. If I feel like that's the reason I'm not going to be able to be successful, then just to interrogate that and have a conversation. And some of the context that we'll be working in will give opportunity to interrogate your sense of limits, whether that's from positive indoctrination or negative indoctrination or anything in between.
I'm gonna ask you a question because I almost felt you when you were talking about the empathy part. Because one of the things that I always talk about when we start talking about addressing our hurts and our pains, a lot of it comes from one another. And so we have a tendency to come at each other, and I understand what you're saying, this being a program, how are we gonna address the healing as Black people, because we have a tendency that when we are educated or up here or we're leading things, we are condescending in the way that we deliver things. And I think that's where you were going with that, correct? Okay, and so again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier, the intentionality and the understanding, and maybe you don't know this, but, and back to what Don said, I know Craig, and Craig and I have had a lot of conversations about how we address things with one another. So as a young person or young professionals, I know a lot of times adults my age, and you're all adults, but I mean my generation has a tendency to talk to you very condescendingly as though you don't have the ability to do anything or that you are not ready. And so the point is that you're saying, how is this going to be addressed to those so that we don't feel like we're dumb or that it's trivial? Well, you know, because my hurt is going to be different from your hurt. And we have a tendency to look at, well, I didn't hurt you the same way, you know. Well, at least I didn't do that. Oh, what you're doing, well, that's small. And it may be small to me, but how do I address it when it's big to you? Is that right? Okay.
I got one thing to say too. Just because I think that a lot of those other programs, most of the time they're creating they're creating an experience that they haven't experienced themselves. And for me, I went to the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, but I lost my band scholarship because I was smoking too much weed during the band trip. I ended up not completing college. I ended up coming home to Kansas City and just saying that I just did not want to work for somebody. And I made it a point to make sure that at every point that I've had to either make money or learn from somebody, that was my education. And in those moments or in that journey to where I am right now, I realized that there are so many gaps and there were so many things that I was experiencing that other people were experiencing who had far further accomplishments than I had. And so there's a gap there. And so for me, I'm sorry, I'm about to bring it a little bit personal to me, but they say God does not choose the rich to do this kind of work. He chooses the broken. and I was truly a broken person, and still am a broken person in this space. And so to be able, I think to answer your question, I think that what I went through and the people who I've collected to be able to help create this, we all walk in this as in, this is an us thing. This is not a me thing. Quiet as it's kept, Craig is trying to transition out of BXKC in 3 years because this organization is not about me. It's not about my legacy. It's about what it is that we're trying to build for our community, and we need to build it for that next generation. So I hope that people will be able to see the authenticity in that. And if you don't see it right now, ask somebody who goes through the cohort afterwards what their experience were, and then maybe that can be able to help us solve that, because I do totally understand that being an apprehension.
I think also it's important to hone in that a part of this Ascend Cohort, my goal would be to help Black professionals develop a strong self-concept. And I think that that protects against indoctrination. If I understand and I know who I am and I have a strong foundation of who I am, who I come from, I think that that's a really good protector against systems, people, and whatnot trying to influence how I view myself. And then as a community, we have to ask the question, who has the privilege, who has the opportunity, who we allow, we should question who we allow those voices in our community to determine or to speak about who we are and the value that we possess. Like, is this entity, is this individual, is this system worthy of speaking on the value that we possess as an individual, as a community, as a race of people?
All right.
Oh, no, go ahead.
No, you good. No, you good.
Oh, no, I was opening the floor for you. Go right
Oh,
ahead.
okay. Well, my question is real simple. Do you have information on pound pit that tells me how much it costs, when it starts, and outline the things to be covered?
Yeah, I got that for him.
Yeah,
Craig, we got a question behind you here.
Great panel. Absolutely, I loved everything that was talked about. One of my questions, especially with me being in the technology space, is the amount of exposure, especially in the Black community. You talked about it before. We have a lot of hobbies and a lot of businesses, and particularly our counterparts in other races are creating software and businesses that scale a lot faster. So, especially in emerging technology, AI, and those different type of things. Specifically subjects that we tend to think that we can go without. Just speak to how that's going to be possibly integrated into the course to keep us up to date with the advancing technology space going on right now.
So, I'm glad you asked that question. One of the reasons I threw out there about the biosciences, you probably know this, but you know that Kansas City was named a tech hub. The Harlem Black Chamber is a partner of the Tech Hub. The reason that I am a partner of the Tech, and I pushed to be on that, was so that we don't get behind, so that we can open those doors. And I know Craig is already on this, and Don, and also Dr. AP. I know they're already on top of this. It is essential that we start developing as Black tech companies, because things are moving really, really fast, and what's happening in the tech world, especially the sciences, the technology that's going into the laboratories is amazing. They're talking about chips to put in your body that'll run through your bloodstream, find cancer and kill it. And that's all behind, that's all technology. And so I do want to say that as a chamber, that's something that will be part of what we will be focused on, and opening doors for you to be in those rooms to find out what's going on from the beginning, not at the end.
I would say too, in that space, as you're an applicant and you're in the tech space, we'll definitely provide the resources and holistic support to help you develop that idea or business. A lot of that is my core background. but then also how we plan on introducing initiatives like that in Kansas City is that we'll have like a lunch and learn. And so we'll have lunch and learns to where we'll have startup founders, we'll have some of our civic councils to come visit, just to kind of teach us about the things that are happening in Kansas City so that you could be better exposed and have that closer proximity to taking advantage of it. This is not going to be like a Porterhouse KC where we're strictly focused on some type of one industry and that's the industry that we're building on, because we want to meet people where they're at. And so that if you're accepted into the cohort and tech is the space that you're in, you'll definitely get that information. Like I mentioned before, we'll have some virtual content as well to expose you to how money is changing in the virtual and technology space as well. But I don't want to say like for sure we're going to do it, but you'll be exposed to it. And we'll be able to point you in the right direction of resources who are doing it and doing it well. And then what you'll have the opportunity is to learn, bring it back, and your coach or myself or somebody on the team will work on that implementation plan with you.
Love that. All right, we've got another question in the back here.
What makes us different than any other program in Kansas City?
I endorsed it.
And it's black.
I think, yeah, Craig just said it. It's black.
There's like the
Centurions and
or there's like the civic council. Like if you want to be a person in the city, you can be in that program. But like, what's the difference between all those that are building you up as a professional in the community and this?
The primary one is that it's black. And what I would add to that is that from what I'm understanding in how it's been founded, it's designed to awaken sleeping genius, where maybe this is trying to connect you to pieces and parts of things and connect you to other network. No, this is trying to get you in touch with who you are in a different way that allows you to awaken the sleeping genius, where nobody's coming to save you. So who are you going to be?
And after that, again, to piggyback off, it's black. Stay there.
That's really
it's
it.
black.
Did we mention
Because
it's
did I mention that it was black?
blackity black.
But so I have been through leadership programs. I went through Leadership Kansas, which is a one-year program. I just finished last year KC Tomorrow, which is the Civic Council leadership program. The intentionality and the focus on a group, this is strictly something that is going to look at this culture of people. I can tell you that when they have those leadership, they're looking at everyone. But when you start talking about actual content, we spend a whole day, every Friday, first Friday, every month for a whole year, and I can't tell you anything that I actually got out of it. I spent a whole year, 3 days out of the month, Leadership Kansas, going from city to town to city to town, all through the state of Kansas. And the only thing I understand about Kansas is it's very, very wealthy. And it is very, very, there is towns that are majority minority, but all the leadership is white. And so there is a lot of things that you don't get in those leadership programs. What you get out of there is networking and connections. Now I can pick up the phone and call some of the wealthiest people in Kansas, oil barons and cattle barons and dairy barons, but it does nothing for me personally or for my community. This cohort will change this community.
And I want to piggyback off of that is that you can have all those connections, but what you gonna do with it? Like, this program is built to help you figure out that plan, so then when I go into Centurions 1, I know how to navigate my healing, because 90% of the group that I'll be connected to is going to be people who don't look like me, which more than likely I have to be a part of that task force that teaches them about my culture. You're not going to experience that here. When you go into the KC Tomorrows, which I feel like is a next step after us, when you go into those spaces, when you're in those spaces, you're in there with some of the most wealthiest people in Kansas City who are down to make golf course decisions right then and there with you. But if you don't have no plan, if you don't understand who you are, then there's no way that those conversations are going to go anywhere further. So what we want to do is center it on you. I honestly could care less what's happening in Kansas City, because if I invest in you, I know I'm invested in Kansas City. I know that what you're going to bring and what you take out of this 3-year plan is going to happen in the city because I helped you with it, and now you have this community who's going to support you in it as well. I've been invited to some of those programs. I have not taken those programs. There's nothing against those programs, but I feel like as a black person who is going to be, if we're talking about systems change, and we need systems change across all sectors and across all industries, we gotta know who we are first. Not to say that you don't know who you are, but let me help you discover more of who you are and who you are within this community, and then let's kind of move forward to be able to make an impact.
You're absolutely right.
That's powerful. Look, let it breathe. As we wrap up tonight, I really thank you all for being here. This is the final Rebuild Honestly panel for 2023. Coming right back 2024, Radical Alignment, my lovely ladies up front here, the podcast. Check us out, Radical Alignment Podcast. We'll be doing more of these conversations next year. I encourage everybody to connect with someone in this room. It's a very good chance that we are the foundation of our own networks. Talk to the panelists, ask questions specific to your fields. We're all working on projects or missions, and it's a very good chance someone in this room can help you make the next play to get closer to where you're trying to go. So, yeah, definitely. So thank y'all again for being here. Get home safely, and that's a wrap.
Yeah.